Hello fiber friends, and welcome to the Jilly and Eve channel. I'm Evie and I make yarn and I make things from yarn. Today I am so excited, finally. This has been a whole year in the making to show you this hand knit sweater that I made from my own hand spun yarn. And when I say this has been a year in the making, it has, because I originally recorded the first part of this video in our old house that we got like a year ago. So we're gonna do a little time traveling to see the explanation of this project, and then we'll see some of the spinning before I had redone the whole studio space here. So it's kind of it's been a long project, and at the end we are going to see the final reveal of my sweater. It is in my bag. I haven't seen it yet. I've seen the body of it and one sleeve, but then I did the other sleeve while the entire thing was in the bag. I'll explain why. So when I reveal this, it's a reveal to me too, because I haven't tried it on yet, finished. I haven't looked at the whole thing finished, none of that. So we'll get to see it together. But to get started, I think we should go, like I said, back in time so I can explain what the fiber is and how I planned to spin it, and give you some tips for keeping your spin the way you want it to be if you are going to knit a hand-spun, hand-knit sweater. So let's go back in time. I have a project. I have been looking for the right fiber for it for some time, and it finally happened. I found it, and I'm so excited to show you what we're up to. I got these from Three Waters Farm. I will also have links for this in the description down below. All right, so this is the color and what I plan to do with it. I have 6 4-ounce braids. Each package is 4 ounces. I got enough that I would be able to do a sweater. So here's what I have. It's amazing. All right, so this is called Out of the Spotlight, and there are 4 ounces of this. I have 3 packages. And then this one is called Radiant Greens, and there are 4 ounces in this. I have 3 packages. Oh, and I think I forgot to mention, these are all Polworth silk blends. Even more luxurious. It's so soft, incredibly squishy. This is going to be a 2-ply yarn. This will be 1 ply, and this will be the other ply. And then we're going to do one more thing, because I'm planning to do this just as a very simple stockinette kind of basic sweater. I don't want it to be very complicated. I don't want to have a lot of cabling or anything like that. I just did a cabled cardigan, and it took a lot of time. So enjoyable, so rewarding, but I'm ready for just some in the round maybe, or back and forth maybe. So this is what I think I'm going to do for this one. You know how when you have a self-striping yarn and you do the front of your sweater and the stripes are like this, and then you do the sleeve of your sweater and the stripes are like this, because you have the same distance of color, but it's filling a different distance in the fabric, right? Because like it might be filling this much space back and forth on the front of the sweater, but it might be filling this much space around and around in the sleeve of the sweater. So another thing that I'm going to do with this project, just as an experiment, I am going to spin the 2 of these that I have. I'm going to spin them just from one end to the other, just as they are. And then the third one, I am going to split in half. That's right, because then only half the amount of color will get spread out in the yarn, and each of those halves will be a sleeve. A tip that I definitely have for anyone who is planning a large sweater project or something similar where you are particular about how your colors come out, I highly recommend this. Prepare all of your fiber before you start spinning, because once it gets on spindles or spinning wheels on bobbins, you can't see what's at the base of the bobbin, right? You can only see what's on top, so it obscures things. You might get the order confused, something like that. So I highly recommend that you make sure that all of the colors line up how you expect them to. And then I usually put a little knot on the end, and that little knot shows me that that's the end. So I start on the other side. If I see the knot, I'm like, ooh, start on the other side. And the reason I always start on the other side is because if I've been spinning, and then I have this like piece of roving bouncing around, and then I pick it up and I'm like, oh, I need to spin some more. Which end was I working on? If I never take the knot out, then I'm always going to pick it up mid-project and continue spinning from the correct end of it, and that keeps all my colors in the right order. So that's a huge tip that I have if you're doing any color organization stuff, to make sure that you're always spinning from the right side. The other suggestion that I have is to undo all of your braids and make sure that the braids are in the same pattern, because sometimes, especially with indie dyers, the fiber may not all lay out the same way. There's going to be variances. There's going to be just, you know, even within the same dye lot, maybe it got split at a different point. You just don't know. And that's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. But it's just something to be aware of with your color management if you don't want to have surprises halfway into a project and you take something out of the package and realize, oh my goodness, this one starts in the middle of the color pattern. I didn't realize. So if you do find something that is off, then you can just pull the braid apart and put it in the order you want it to be in. Maybe one starts with purple and one starts with orange, and you want them all to start with purple. Just pull it apart and reorder it, and then make those little knots so you don't get confused. I have unfolded all of these braids of fiber, and you can see that they do follow the same pattern for how they were dyed. All the Three Waters Farm fiber that I've worked with has been this way. It's all been from the same dye lot, but it has all followed the same pattern. I don't know if that's 100% the case, but it has been with what I've worked with. But even still, I always double check, because when you're managing your color, you have to manage your color. So as you can see, these are the 3 different braids, right? And I'm just pulling it from one end to the other, and you can see how they all follow the exact same color pattern. So that makes this project even a step easier, because I don't have to split something to put it into the same order as the rest of it. All the oranges come together, all these purples, that maroon color, and I think this is the halfway, so then we're gonna take this and go again. Yep, see that? With the oranges, the maroons, the blues, the greens, and the teals, and then back to the purples. So that's great. I know that the colors are predictable. They're the exact same for each braid. And so when I split these to do the larger project, it should come out exactly how I expect it to. Yes. All right, so I'll take one of these and split it down the middle, and then I'll put the knot on the darker purple end. See how important it is to do a knot? This could be confusing. If I was spinning in the evening watching TV and the lights were dim, I might not even notice that this is maroon versus purple, and I could grab the wrong end of it and we could have a disaster. So I'm going to put a knot in all of the maroon ends, and I will start spinning from the darker purple ends, and that way it will be consistent with each ball of yarn that I end up spinning. All right, let's split one of these down the middle for the sleeves. Ta-da! I'm going to lay everything out on a table and take a picture of it. That's not just because I put my stuff on Instagram and YouTube. Those pictures are actually helpful for me in my record keeping, because as I'm spinning, if half of it ends up in the bobbin and I don't know which is coming next or something like that, and I need to look back on the color order, I'll have a photograph picture I can look back at, and that helps me keep track of what's what. So that's what I am going to do now. Here they all are braided up. I braided these. I take full responsibility. They look awful. I'm such a terrible fiber braider, but I know I'm just gonna tear it apart to spin it soon anyway, so it doesn't really matter. So these two will each be 1 ply in a 2-ply yarn. So this will be the front of the sweater. This will be the back of the sweater, or the other way around. It doesn't matter because they're going to match. And then you can see these are half the size, but the colors are still in the same order. And so same with this, it's half the size. So these are the sleeves, and then I have another of those halvesies over here to be the other sleeve. And I'm just going to do this in a way where I start at the top and just go down till I run out, and then I start at the top and go down until I run out. And that's going to be sort of my construction method so that the colors all line up so I don't run out of yarn. So it's all set up. I just have to get spinning. I did the spinning for this video mostly during the Spin Together week of 2021. And I do have a video of that, and you're welcome to go check it out if you want to see even more footage of this spin. I spun this fiber long draw in double drive using my Ashford Elizabeth. This fiber is a Polworth silk blend, and I have to say that I love Polworth so much. It is a long stapled fiber, and it has such a lovely glossy sheen to it. It really takes dye very well, and while it does drape nicely, it also has a springy bounce to it. It's a very forgiving fiber. It's great for next to the skin garments, and I never ever find it to be itchy at all. This blend with the silk in it only enhances these wonderful Polworth qualities. But there is one important thing to note about Polworth. I find that after spinning, when I wash my skeins, it puffs up quite a lot. So it's really important to wash and finish your yarn before working it into any project, because that puffing up effect, especially with Polworth, is fairly dramatic. It's dramatic enough to affect your total yardage as it shortens with the poofing, and it can also affect your gauge in your knitted project, so do keep that in mind. With my yarn spun, it was time to choose a knitting project. I needed to find something that would work for a light DK weight of yarn, which is what this came out to, and I wanted something that didn't have a lot of busy stitches because I want the yarn to shine. This is about playing with the color in a hand-dyed, hand-painted braid of fiber, and really I want that color and that yarn to be the star of the show. So the pattern that I decided to go with is Flax from Tin Can Knits, which I find just a smidge confusing since I do also spin flax, but that's besides the point. I think this is a really solid pattern. I've wanted to have it in my own personal wardrobe, but also so that I can share it with all of you and let you know that, hey, this pattern is solid, it's size inclusive, it comes with tutorials, so if you are new to knitting and you want to try a first sweater, it's a great one to check out. It's also free, can't beat that, right? And the other thing that I really appreciate about this pattern is that it does have a little bit of interest with this gartered sort of panel down the sleeves, but the whole body of it is stockinette. And it really does allow the yarn to shine while still being a little bit interesting on those gartered panels, so the stitch wasn't just too boring. And I think it works really well for hand spun yarn. It's a very forgiving pattern. So if you want to hand spin and knit your first sweater, check out Flax from Tin Can Knits. I think it's a really good solid choice. Once I had chosen the pattern, it was time to knit some gauge swatches, which look, I swatched. Aren't you proud of me? I did it. Honestly, knitting a gauge swatch when you are working with hand spun yarn is essential. In fact, it's sometimes even a good idea to do a gauge swatch from every skein that you have done, because our spinning changes from the beginning to the end of a project. I believe, do more swatches than just this one, but this is the only one I can still find, which I guess is what happens when you have a project that takes a year to get done. So I did knit up a gauge swatch, and I was really excited to find that my gauge was 100% exactly spot on to what the pattern called for. And that never happens to me. I usually have to go up a needle size. And so that was exciting. But after I had done all the stockinette on the body of the sweater, it was time to do the sleeves. And this is where things got interesting, because I wanted my sleeves to match. Let's see how that went. I have finished knitting the body of the sweater. I used, let's see. So I used one of the skeins that had the 4 ounce and 4 ounce plied together. So that was 8 ounces for the top portion down to, you can see where this is the blue and then there's a green stripe and then it starts into this purple and yellow stuff. So that's where I switched down here. It was the blue and then the green, and then it started into this purple and yellow stuff. So this section down here was the beginning of the second 8 ounce skein, but I have a whole lot of it left over, like a whole lot of it. This is where we were coming into more purple, and I didn't want to repeat that again, so I just pulled that part out and then kept on with this. So yeah, there's like this thick in the wall of this yarn cake. There's still a lot of yarn left from this body, so I definitely overestimated. I'm not mad about it. I needed that extra to be able to play with the colors in the way that I needed to. And this is gonna be some great yarn for maybe some accessories. I've always thought it would be fun to make a hat or something to match my sweater, or socks maybe. I always think that's such a fun idea, and I never have enough yarn to do it. But with this one, I might. So it's time to work with the sleeves. So I'm going to grab the skeins of sleeves yarn. So I need to put these into the yarn cakes that I will be knitting from, but I also need to make sure that they match. So these are going to go through a same color progression as the body of the sweater. And I want to make sure that if it's going to do that blue and then green and then purple and gold, that is how I'm pulling it off of the yarn cake to knit from. The worst thing would be to have one of them from the other end where I start, and then it'll look like one sleeve is upside down. Don't want that. So I need to make sure that I skein these up the same way with the colors progressing in the same way. The first color that I have wound on is this purple and lighter blue combo, and that looks like what's going on in the sweater here. So I'm hoping maybe we're going to be backing up, so we'll have some blue, then the green, more blue, and then we'll get into this purple and gold stuff. Now, as I was winding this, I was looking and I thought, oh no, the beginning of the sleeve has this little bit of the gold right here on the edge, and my skein for the sleeve doesn't start with the gold. Oh dear! So I'm not sure how I'm going to manage that. I might. The skein starts with the blue and purple just before it. So I might take off that blue and purple section from the beginning of the skein and start with the gold so that it doesn't have this weird little stripe right here. I'll address that when I get to it, but hopefully we should be ending this ball once it's wound with a little bit of the gold and then into the purple and blue, and then that should be it. So I'm thinking my sleeve is going to come down. It's probably going to be either a half sleeve or a 3/4 sleeve, and that'll be perfect for me. My sleeves are wound up and they match. Now I want to show you what the progression is of these colors because it's not exactly what I was expecting it to be. Where these balls of yarn start with the color pattern is not the top pattern here. It's here. So it goes from this kind of burgundy to purple and then to the yellow, and you can see that in there, that orange yellow color. And you can see that layer just under that kind of purple and burgundy. And then it progresses like this. It goes through the blue, the green, and then it's as if it stops here. I did not plan this on the body of the sweater. I don't know how this happened. And then it picks up here and it comes through this progression of colors with the green, the blue, the purple, and then it has two stripes of yellow that are fairly close together with this burgundy in between those two. So what I think I want to do to construct these sleeves is to take off this burgundy stuff because there's just a tiny bit of it, and then start with the yellow. So I will be starting with yellow right here, or even if I did the burgundy, no, because there's that tiny blip of the yellow right there. So I think I'm gonna take off the burgundy and start with the yellow, and so it'll pick up right here with the yellow, and then just go from there. And I'll have two of the yellow stripes kind of down by the cuffs. I think it's gonna look cool. My goal is just for the sleeves to mostly match. So we'll see. But that's what I'm going to try. I'm not so much doing this to have striped sleeves. I can accomplish striped sleeves with multiple colors of yarn and switch yarn when I want to change stripes. Make the rows match, make the number of stitches match, make it exact. What I'm really doing here is trying to think through the progression of colors in a hand-painted braid of yarn and to see how they come together. It's about the hand-painted yarn or fiber at this, because it was fiber that was dyed first, hand-painted first, then became yarn. So that's the part of it that really intrigued me to try this process and see what would happen. I am pretty sure I am predicting the future right now when I say that one of these sleeves is going to go really fast and I'll have it done. And the other sleeve, I will be constantly stopping and folding the whole thing over to see how it's all lining up. So I might challenge myself. If I start to do that, I'm really going to bog myself down. And I don't want to do that. I don't want to get real fussy where I start cutting out colors or trying to make it match too much, because then really we are reverting back to the standard way of changing yarns to change colors and achieve stripes. So I might challenge myself to do one whole sleeve, and then I like to put my sweater into a little bag so it's all tucked up as I do the other sleeve with the top down, so I don't have a whole mess flopping around on my lap while I do the circular knitting of the sleeve. So maybe I'll just make myself keep it in there, and so when I unroll it and look at both of the sleeves together, it will be a reveal for me as well. So let's get knitting. And it's going to take a lot of willpower not to peek, but I will get my reaction on camera when both sleeves are done. I have stuck to it. I kept the whole thing in the bag, and I'm not comparing as much as I want to. But I have a problem. There is a garter panel, and for some reason I miscounted or I didn't count, and this garter panel is shorter by 1 stitch than it was supposed to be. When I first realized the mistake, I thought, oh no, I've dropped a stitch. And I looked and looked and looked and could not find the dropped stitch. Well, it looks like I didn't drop the stitch or lose a stitch, but I did not include this stitch in the garter panel after I joined on my sleeve yarn, and that means that I have 1 stitch up along the side of this garter panel that is part of the stockinette that was supposed to be part of the garter. So I am going to drop this stitch, I'm going to ladder it down, and then I'll catch it when I get to where the mistake was, and then I will chain it back up using a crochet hook and get it to join its friends. That's the best solution I could come up with to fix this without having to rip the entire sleeve off and start over. And now finally, it is time to take my sweater out of my bag and see what it looks like. Are we ready for this? I don't know if I'm ready for this. I can't believe that I actually did keep it in the bag, and now that it's there, I'm like, I don't know if I can look. Ah! So here it is. My finished sweater. Obviously I haven't woven in the ends. I'll just tuck that inside. Well, that's fine. There it is. Okay. I haven't even really looked. I haven't looked down yet. Oh my goodness. Here's my sweater. Ta-da! Oh, it's pretty. It is. It's really pretty. I am going to go grab a dress form and pop it on there so that I can point out a couple things, and let's take a closer look. All right, here she is, finished up and displayed. I have not blocked the sweater yet, so I sort of have this little rollover happening on the sleeves, but that's okay. I will wash and block it and do all of those things properly. But let's look at the color on the sleeves and how this sort of self-striping thing happened. The joining on of the sleeves happened here at the second stripe right here. And then if you look up close on this one, we are fairly close to having the stripes line up. That is so cool. That is what I wanted. And that's amazing. So as the sleeve gets closer and closer to the cuff, it did have some decreases worked into it, which means fewer stitches. You're going to have that color stripe thicken up as there's not as much distance for it to cover. So the stripes down towards the wrist did get a little bit thicker, and that's fine. I love it. I think it's great. I'm so happy with it. Now the other sleeve though didn't quite line up. Oh no. You're all gonna have to tell me if you think I should pull it back and fix it, because I could, and I'll show you how in just 1 second. So I'm gonna turn it this way, and if we look here, the top is perfect. As we come down a little bit though, we start to get into this blue, this green, this purple, but this purple, it's like it lasted forever. And then we got into these other blues and greens, and we just didn't quite make it to that final purple and orange stripe like the other sleeve did. So what's my option for that? For one, I don't think it's that noticeable, honestly. I mean, the stripe at the top was the one that I was the most concerned about, because this gold stripe here, and then lining up here, that was honestly the one that I was the most worried about, and that's the one that did come out exactly how I wanted it to come out. So what I could do to fix it, let me know if you think I should bother. Where's my leftover yarn? Okay. So I still have all this leftover yarn for this sleeve. So I could just rip it back to where this purple stuff is. I could remove some of that purple so there's just not quite as much. Make it sort of match the distance here. And then pick up again on these blues and greens. And this is just coming into this purpley stuff. and into the gold stuff. So this part right here is where the end of this is. So what I would do to fix it is ball this up so that it goes through the colors as it should, and then I would take this out and I would match the yardage of what I take out to what I'll be putting in, and then as it backs up, then my yardage is gonna line up. I don't know, that's a thought I had on something I could try to fix it. I don't know if that would work or if that makes sense. Let me know what you think, honestly, because I have never adjusted a hand spun sleeve to match like this before. So what are your thoughts? Let me know. So these projects that take a year, that I'm always kind of perpetually working on in the background, it always kind of baffles me, I guess. It boggles my mind, I guess, at how short a video it is to go from beginning to reveal. And I just think it's important that we all take a moment, because this is true for you as well, if you're a crafter, that it takes hundreds of hours to do something like this. It's not as quick as the video makes it appear. So I think it's just important to acknowledge that, because even though we can get these really quick, instant beginning to end of project reveals, a lot of times people will ask me and say, oh, I want to see, you know, you spun this yarn in this video, but I want to see it knit into something. I want to see how it looks when it's woven and stuff. And I'm like, I would love to as well. But you would only get one video every couple months if I was doing a beginning to finish on every single spin, because it really takes time. So I wanted to take a moment to acknowledge the hours. Not just for me, but for all of you as well. Don't feel like you have to rush things or use a bulkier yarn than you want to for that quick finish. It doesn't have to be a quick finish. You can take your time and make the project you really want. She's beautiful. I'm really happy with this sweater. I kind of don't want to rip out the sleeve now that I'm really thinking about it, because I sort of feel like it tells a story. So I'll definitely be looking in the comments to see what everyone thinks. Thank you so much for watching. I do have some more sewing projects coming up, so you'll definitely want to be here for that. Subscribe if you love history and history bounding and hand spun yarn and projects and things. That's what I do here. Like this video because it helps. Share this with your friends who you think would enjoy it. I'm like holding my hand. So I'm giddy with the excitement of a finished project. I'm gonna have to try this on and show you what it looks like with me wearing it. And then I'm gonna get sewing, because I have some sewing projects to share with you coming up that integrate my hand spun yarn in the sewing project. I'm so excited. If you're not subscribed, what are you waiting for? Get subscribed. Like this video and share it with your friends, because this was hundreds of hours for a very short video, and I'd really like for people to see this project, hopefully so they can be encouraged and inspired to try their own hand spun, hand knit, large projects just like this one. All right, friends, I have to get sewing. I'll see you in the next one. Happy spinning!